What's up, guys? My name is Zach, and I'm a Division I baseball player. This is the second type of video I'm doing on YouTube, and in today's video, I'm doing 20 questions in 20 minutes. I asked ChatGPT for 20 questions. Here they are, and I'm just going to do 20 questions in 20 minutes. I hope to share my experience and some of the stories I've learned through D1 baseball by doing this, but the end goal is not this. The end goal is not just me yapping and yapping and yapping. I really want to create a podcast of some kind where I can just meet with and talk with interesting people. Don't have to be famous people, just interesting people. So if you're interested in that and want to talk, just DM me on Zach Wattis Daily on Instagram or at zachwattisbusiness@gmail.com, whatever it may be. But yeah, I really want to talk with you guys. But before I go into all that, the first question is, what is one belief that you hold that most people your age disagree with? I'm 21 years old, about to be 22. And for about 6 years of my life, when I really started getting dialed in for sports, and honestly before that, I wholeheartedly believed that hard work was the number one indicator for finding success, right? And it's not entirely untrue. You have to work hard to be successful. But there's this mindset that I think gets preached by David Goggins. There's this mindset that gets preached by, you see it in Kobe videos, you see it in a lot of things where it's just this overwhelming discipline. And for the longest time, that's what I obsessed over. I was so good at that. But then this last season at LMU, I had a terrible season, right? It was the first time I'd been on a losing team, and it's the first time that I struggled the way that I had struggled. And the reality was, I had worked so hard. I wanted to get drafted so badly, but I was missing something. I hadn't hung out with my teammates. I hadn't really built the relationships that you need for a team sport. And when I was struggling and the team was struggling, I was in a lonely spot. So what I've learned is that sometimes it's okay to sacrifice one night out to be with your teammates. Sometimes it's okay to sacrifice those little things. But more than that, by teaching yourself that you can do it, it removes a mental block. Because I think there's something inside of our brains that when we obsess over things like that, it's like, in order for me to perform my best, I have to make sure that I get this, this, and this done. I have to get my workout, my mobility, my sleep, all of this. But then you start to obsess over it. I see people, I have a Whoop, and today I hit my first ever walk-off home run. It was incredible, and I didn't even get to start in the game. It was a pinch hit at bat late in the game. 19% recovery. Some people see that, and they're like, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to perform today? But I still found a way to perform. And it's currently 2:20 in the morning. I'm doing this late at night, but I wanted to do it. You see the eye bags, I'm tired. But the reality is, you don't have to be in a perfect spot to perform. And by removing the mental block and by showing yourself and proving to yourself, you're actually in a much better spot, especially in times and in sports or in positions that require pressure. Prove to yourself that you don't need to be in the perfect environment, and you'll become a lot better. I just took 2 minutes answering that question, so I'll try to speed up. What failure changed your life the most? It was honestly this last year. Love it. This is like a two birds with one stone. This failure that I learned this last year, it took my coach telling me that I needed to be more open with my teammates and all that, taught me to be social, taught me to be someone that isn't just so pent up and caught up with myself and my narcissism or whatever you want to call it, that I was able to expand out and go away from my beliefs that you have to be perfect about this, this, and this, can become a little bit less type A in some areas, and it allowed me to find success in others. So that's a quick question. And if baseball ended tomorrow, who would you become? This is a tough question because baseball has been my life, and I really want to make it to the MLB and become one of the best baseball players of all time. But this is why I'm starting to build the personal brand. Not because I think baseball is going to end. I want to be someone that can share what I've learned to the rest of the world. I want to be able to spread the gospel. I have this Bible with me. I want to spread the gospel. So I think that's something. I have a girlfriend of 6.5 years. There's still parts of me that are always going to be there. And I think I would still somehow stay in baseball in some way. But a lot of me, I wouldn't necessarily lose myself if I lost baseball, but I love baseball. So it's a tough question. I don't know if I fully answered that, but I hope it helped. What's a piece of advice that sounds good but is actually terrible? There you go. I'm going to say the same thing. The piece of advice is to not go out on the Friday night and go work out, do this, do that, stay disciplined, do this. There's a point to it, but don't become so obsessed over it. I think that's a huge piece of advice. Sometimes it's okay to live life in moderation. Ecclesiastes talked about it. Solomon was the richest man, the wisest man. He had it all, right? And he talked about how he had seen people that had become basically monks their whole life. but they still died. There are people that had become like him with all the wealth, all the females, all that. They're still going to die. They're still going to be forgotten. So live life in moderation. Have fun. Live a life that is one that pursues God. Live a life that is one that is stepping into the light. But don't over obsess in a way that you're taking away from the beauty that life is. What's something you've changed your mind about in the last year? Wow, all these questions are the same thing. I don't know. I didn't even look at these before. But yeah, I've changed my mind that you have to get perfect sleep, perfect rest, perfect recovery to perform well. And looking back, some of the best players I've ever seen, they love to go party. They're not always in the cages. They're not always doing that. But they're just mentally free. The more you can mentally free yourself, the more success you're going to find. Do you think talent or consistency matters more? I think if you're talented, you're going to be consistent, but I think I have talent, right? I'm 6'4", 210 pounds. I'm super fast. I have all the athletic abilities to succeed, but I'm 21 years old and I'm not in the big leagues. I've played with big leaguers that are playing in the big leagues right now, and I always ask myself that question: why am I not in the big leagues? Some of them, like Kevin McGonigal, he's consistent. There's no doubt about it. He's just an overwhelmingly consistent person. But there's also some people that they just don't let their mind get in the way. I'm an overly analytical person, and it's something you'll probably learn as you hear more about me. So I think that ability to not letting your mind get in the way and let your talent play free is the best way to be consistent. And I think that's important for all things. And I love baseball because it's taught me that in a different way. With school, everything's task-based. Everything's this way. So you can, by being consistent, you're going to succeed in school. But I don't really think that's how the real world works. I'm only 21 years old, so you can say I'm wrong. But that's just my personal opinion. What's the hardest part about being ambitious? Well, I think the easy answer there is there's a definite there's a reality out there where you are going to fail. Your ambitions, your goals, the things that God has put on your heart, there's a version where you're not going to make it. And that's a sad thing. It's a scary thing. But is that really that scary? Think about it. Because if you give all of your heart and your effort and your soul into something and it doesn't work out, think about how much you learned. I'm telling you stories right now about how I've learned how to become a better teammate, a better person, be more social, how to not obsess over some of the wrong things, even though they seem like the right things. So think about all the things I've learned from baseball that I wouldn't have learned without it. More than that, I've traveled the country. I've done so many amazing things. So just because you're ambitious, just because your ambitions may not work out, it doesn't mean that you get a lot out of it. What's one question everyone should ask themselves at least once? That's a good question, and I have a little bit of time. I think it's important to question purpose. Very important to question purpose, because the more I question purpose, the more I get turned to God. Because what is life? Really, what is life? That sounds like a generic thing, but what is life if we're in this universe, right? And we're these little ants, right? And we get this short little lifetime, and it's important for us to maximize it. But God gives us something more than that short little life. God gives us eternal life. So I think when you question purpose and you think about it long term, I think that's what Solomon did great in Ecclesiastes. I'm going to keep turning back to that. The more you realize that it's important to really live your life and live life to the fullest and be happy about what you're doing. What's one question everyone should, and I just asked someone, who's someone that you admire, who's someone you admire that most people wouldn't expect? Yeah, so I think there's obvious answers. My parents, I admire them greatly. There's a person, his name, I don't need to say his name, but he was my hitting coach for a long time. And he's in jail for something that I believe he didn't commit. And it's a very real punishment. He's in jail for 5 to 7 years. But since then, instead of letting that get to him and turn him into someone that he's not, he's found God. He's grown closer with God, and I am so proud of him for it. He's been my mentor since I was like 11 years old, and I am so proud of him for it. And you might think, this dude's in prison. He's in jail. Why do I admire him? And the reality is I admire him because he's worked hard. I've seen him in jail. The people there think of him differently. They don't think of him as someone that is like the people in prison. He's united people in prison. I don't know if you guys know much about prisons, but a lot of prisons are like segregated in ways, and he's becoming a firefighter through being in prison, and part of that was doing challenges. And he did a challenge with a black person, and in most prisons they're segregated and they stay out because it's supposed to remove violence or whatever, but he did the challenge with the black person. That was like the first time they had really intermingled in that prison themselves. So it's crazy. It's an interesting concept that you don't even think about, but I really admire him. He's found God, he's brought other people towards God, and he's kept a positive attitude in something that is easily the worst part of his life. And I could not imagine spending 7 years of my life in prison, because I'm just talking about the things I learned over the last 7 years. It's crazy. So I hope that he just makes the most of a very difficult time, and I know he is. What's one book that genuinely changed how you think? I don't know if you guys have read it. You probably have. Everyone reads it in like middle school, and some people hate it, some people love it. But Fahrenheit 451. I mean, that book was written, in the 1960s? And look at how true it is today. Look at me. I have my AirPod in. I'm talking to a screen. There's a TV behind me. I have my phone right here. We're addicted to our phones. And think about it. When you're thinking about books, some of you guys maybe have read a lot of books, but a lot of us haven't. A lot of us are so obsessed. I see people bring their kids to restaurants nowadays, and their kids are just on their phones, and they're staring at their phones, and they don't blink ever. It's crazy. They don't blink. It's ridiculous. I see people that have their TV on, they're doom scrolling, they're playing a video game, they're doing it all at once. That book kind of highlights that, and the reality is, I think we're in a dangerous spot right now, where the reality is this social media thing is amazing, and there's so much to grow and learn from. It can be profitable, it can be amazing, but there's a very dangerous aspect that might keep us from really, being social and really experiencing life the way it's meant to be experienced. Because if we're spending 8 hours on a day on our phone, think about it. That's a third of our life. That's a third of each day and a third of our lives. That's ridiculous. What's a Bible verse or lesson that you come back to often? I encourage you to watch the video that I just made before this. There's a lot of rambling, kind of like this video, but a verse that I come back to often is Ephesians 3:14 through 21. It's a prayer for spiritual power. It's a prayer that God answered me. God showed me during my most difficult time in my season last year when I was really struggling in D1 baseball. And to keep his story short, I was praying, I was begging God. He showed me Job, he showed me he showed me Job, he showed me to the temptation of Jesus in the book of Matthew. But I wanted an answer, and he answered this with this. And then a couple days later, I found this on the ground next to a trash can. I opened it up, and it had the exact Ephesians 3:14 through 21. And to do more, the day I was reading this in the Bible was the 21st. So this devotional was even crazier in that way. Page number 34 on the devotional. Sorry, you guys can see it right here. That was my baseball number. And in 3:14, March 14th, is the day that I started dating my girlfriend Sarah, which was over 6.5 years ago, and she's the love of my life. We've had so many experiences together. We've grown up together. So yeah, it's the prayer for spiritual power. If you guys, please, I encourage you guys to open it up to it. It's Ephesians 3:14 through 21. I'm running a little bit behind, so I gotta speed up. If you could have a dinner with anyone alive, who would it be and why? That's a really interesting question. I haven't really thought about that. Anyone that's alive. I think a lot of people would choose presidents and inspirational figures. You know what? It'd be Joe Rogan. I think I know it's a cliche thing, but I think he's a very interesting dude. I admire how he's just been consistent over the years, and I think he'd be someone that he could share so many stories. I hear a lot of his stories online, but he has so many stories from so many different people, and just to hear his thoughts on life and his thoughts when he was 21 years old and now he's older and what he's learned, I think that'd be an interesting thing. What's one thing social media gets completely wrong? I think social media is starting to become more honest. I would say like back in the day it was very only the best things. I don't think it's that. I think it's very divisive. That would be the biggest thing I said. It's getting more truthful, right? But I think we kind of put our feeds in a way where we're only looking at the things we agree with or disagree with. And a lot of posts are made in a way that they are triggering your emotions to to bring out your emotions in some sort of way. Sometimes it's positive emotions, but a lot of time it's trying to bring out some sort of emotion that gets you to comment, gets you to like, gets you to share. It's a very manufactured thing in those aspects that, in my opinion, only pushes division. It doesn't bring us together. And I think social media could be used to bring us together, and that's something that I hope to do one day. What's something that you've learned from baseball that applies to everyone? I've already talked about how discipline's important and all of that, but it is important to, live life in moderation. So what's something else I could say? Baseball has taught me so many lessons in this. I keep coming back to this. I may be obnoxious with it, but baseball has taught me that I've failed so many times, and I've learned stuff from it. I've learned from the failure. I've learned how to be grateful in some of my darkest times. That's what baseball's taught me. And in those times, I've prayed to God, and God has answered me. So it's been a relationship, and then God has taught me to keep going in those dark times. So baseball has been a way for me to grow closer with God, and God has helped me with my relationship with baseball and kept me going through some of my darkest times, kept me from quitting. He's given me signs that I can't even explain. So, yeah. What's a fear that you're still trying to overcome? I think there's a fear, there's a deep fear that my mental side, my mental performance might keep me from achieving my dreams. I know that I have the talent and the skills and the ability to play at a high level, but I think sometimes I get in my own head, and I think everybody does. But there's no the more you try to figure it out, what I've learned is the worse you're going to be. And me keeping myself from overdoing that, I worry that I can't do that, but I know that I can. And I just worry that I don't hold myself accountable enough to do that. What's a decision that you've made, one decision you're really glad you made? It was to go on a date with my girlfriend Sarah 6.5 years ago. I mean, that sounds kind of cringy and cheesy, but we've been together for 6.5 years. We grew up together. The day that she got her email about COVID hitting was the Friday, the March 14th that we started dating. School got canceled. We saw each other like every Friday, and then it obviously happened. We started seeing each other more after that, but we grew up together, and because of that, we've grown closer to God together. Because of that, we've really experienced life together, and I'm so grateful to have a high school sweetheart like that. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you start today? If I knew I couldn't fail, these are the things I'm doing. Right now I'm doing social media. I want to make this a podcast. I've told you guys that. I want to talk with interesting people, and I would pursue baseball to the highest level. I want to be a Hall of Fame baseball player, and I want to be someone that spreads what I've learned through that and talks with interesting people, because I've only learned so much. I'm 21 years old, and the more people I talk to, the more that I can learn to share with other people, and the more that the world gets to see. And I really just hope to be an influential person in that way and share the gospel in that way. Oh my goodness, I'm running out of time. What do you think people misunderstand about happiness? I think people think sometimes that happiness comes from material things or achieving your goals or whatever. And I think what I've noticed in baseball, what baseball has taught me, is that goals are great, but eventually they die out. Eventually your goals will die out because you're going to achieve them, and then there's another goal, there's another goal, there's another goal. So really finding true happiness comes from being at peace and understanding what your purpose is, which goes back to my question earlier. I know that my purpose is to share the gospel, bring people to God. I know that my purpose is to maximize the gifts God has given me. So by doing that, I find much more pure joy than trying to push for something that's different. What's one prediction you have for the next 10 years? I think that social media is going to become, I've heard this before, so I'm not the first person to say it, but I think social media is going to become like real estate. The more real estate that you have on social media, the more followers and influence you have, the more not the more powerful, but the better spot you're going to be in. You're going to be able to monetize. You're going to be in a good spot in those ways. And what's one question that you wish people asked you more often? There isn't one question. There isn't. But I do wish that people really got to just know the true me. And part of that is me. I need to do a better job of always hanging out with guys and doing things like that. And I just wish people this has nothing to do with just me. I just wish people gave people the benefit of the doubt more often. I struggle with it, but the more we can just learn from people and learn that our experiences may have shaped the way we think about things, and just learn from people, and also learn that most of our ideas are more similar than we thought, the better off we are. I think the better off that we'll always be. So there isn't one question, but I just do wish we could understand more about each other. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I have 5 seconds left. Eventually, I want to create a podcast, but if you like this, subscribe.